let's put it this way. I didn't get paid very well to do what I was doing, and I was a very popular character.
Yeah.
And so I left, and then I ended up hooking on a station in Orlando that competed against that station.
Oh.
And the difference was, though, I was syndicated in 3 other markets with this other station.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went over to this comedy club to work, and the guy billed me as Dan Whitney, a.k.a. Larry the Cable Guy from 95 YNF. And at first I was irritated because it was like, well, I'm not with that station anymore. And besides that, this isn't anything like my act. This is all for radio. It's theater of the mind. You know, Larry the Cable Guy is very political. I'm not political on stage.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, if it's any consolation, you sold out 2 shows in 20 minutes.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, right? And I'm like, okay. So I went on stage the first. You got about 4 hours for this? So I go on stage the first time, and I'm doing my act. John was, you know, I do one-liners type material. I don't do a lot of long bits. It's all just boom, 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 set up, punch, set up, punch. That was what my act was. So as I'm doing my show in the first 10, 12 minutes, people are yelling, get it in! Larry! We want to hear Larry! And so I dipped down into the character, and it killed. And so since I didn't really have any jokes for it, I just kind of started doing the... And it ain't nothing for me to put on a Southern accent. I mean, I lived in Florida most of my life, and I went to college in Georgia, so... You know, I'm a farm kid, so I hung out with all those Florida crackers, and, you know, I love country music, and so that's, you know, I defy anybody to live in Florida around a bunch of rednecks and not start talking to them after, you know, 6 months.
No, I know.
And so anyway, I get done, and they didn't want to hear me. They were laughing at the Larry stuff, and I literally took my jokes and just slowed them down and, you know, tried and got my timing on the character. Well, I get done and I'm signing autographs and taking pictures. I mean, it's never, and you know, I was a middle act, and but I was headlining a lot of the smaller rooms.
Yeah.
You know, but I was still a middle act. I mean, I'd only been doing comedy professiononly since 1988. Here it was 1995.
Wow. Okay.
And so I was at 95. It might have been 94, 94, 95. So he comes up to me and he says, hey, can you do your whole show like that? And I said, yeah, I talk like that just with my buddies down at the country bar. It ain't that hard. And so he says, well, I'm going to take your name off. He goes, you should try it. Just as Larry the Cable Guy, I'll take your name off the board. I said, all right. So I went and I changed and I went on stage in what I drove over. And I drove over. My car was a 1984 Trans Am with T-tops with a big blue Firebird on the front of it. And I went on stage in a pair of lace-up Roper boots, blue jeans for the first time, because that's what I drove over in, a cut-off Nebraska Cornhusker T-shirt, and a NASCAR hat. That's exactly what I drove over in. And I went on stage for the first time as Larry the Cable Guy. And what I did was I started pulling out bits that I could remember from the radio that I did that people liked, you know. And so I did my act combined with the Larry act. And that's how it all started. It just started by happenstance, and it was meant completely for radio. But I'll tell you what, the Lord works in mysterious ways, because that just it took off like gangbusters.
I love that story.
Yeah,
it's a great story. And then how does Jeff Foxworthy hear about you? How does that get? Does he just...
Well, Jeff and I had been friends already. Jeff, I'm a Atlanta Braves fan, and the Braves used to have spring training in West Palm Beach.
Yeah.
And so Jeff and Vic Henley and Jeff Foxworthy used to come to the Comedy Corner in West Palm Beach in the mid-'80s. They would flip-flop so they could stay in West Palm Beach for 2 weeks and go to spring training games.
Yeah.
And I had 4 season tickets. I worked at the time as a bellhop at the Hyatt Regency in Palm Beach. It was really in West Palm Beach. But I was making some pretty good money working there because I had the Braves used to spring training there. And so, you get $100 running somebody up to the ATM machine. It was awesome. And so I had those season tickets. So for 2 weeks a year, Jeff Foxworthy, Chris Baker, my buddy, Vic Henley, we would spend 2 weeks in a row at West Palm Beach Municipal Stadium watching Braves baseball. And Jeff and I, Jeff's one of my best friends in the whole world. And he was like me. We loved to do the Southern stuff, and we loved to riff off of each other. And I mean, I'm not kidding. We literally would just be sitting there in a boring game, and Jeff would lean over to me, and he'd go, "Hey, did you get that potato salad for that thing we was doing Sunday?" Just out of nowhere. And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, what's he talking about? Then I realized, he's just being funny. So I leaned over and I go, "No, I didn't do it this year, Jubal, because we was going to go the coleslaw route." "Well, the potato salad." And we literally would riff like a 15-minute story, like just 2 old rednecks sitting at the Braves game talking about the party going on. And we did it all the time. And that's how Jeff and I became really good buddies. And then when they needed somebody else for the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, I had already gone up and did a show called The History of Country Comedy in Nashville. And I think this is a pretty good lesson to some comics, too, because in my career, I never really chased the money. I always chased the opportunity.
Nice.
And so when I had just got done, I was doing this Larry the Cable Guy stuff for a good 2 years. And I think Rich Jenny and I think we were the 2 highest paid. Yeah, he was great. But I think at the time we were like the 2 highest paid comics in the country for comedy clubs. And I knew Rich. I mean, he's been through the Comedy Corner a bunch of times. We'd always gone out to eat breakfast and stuff. So I knew Rich. So it was really kind of cool. But he was all over the country. I was just wherever they heard the character on the radio,
Yeah.
But I could still work a good 25 states pretty good. So Jeff, and when I say I would chase the opportunity, I just came home from literally a month and a half on the road. I had 1 weekend off, and I remember my buddy and I went fishing in Butler Chain of Lakes down there in Orlando, and we were fishing, and my manager, Colleen, called me up, and she said, "Hey, they're doing a thing called the History of Country Comedy. I know you just got home, but it's this weekend. They'd love to have you. They need one more guy. You're the only guy not getting paid to do it because they don't have it in the budget, but they need one more guy." And they said, "But they will buy your airfare and put you up in a hotel." And I was like, I literally thought, well, I don't want to do this. And then she said, it's being hosted by Jeff Foxworthy and Andy Griffith and Bill Engvall. And then I'm thinking in my head, well, that'd be cool. I get to go up and hang out with Jeff a little bit, and see Jeff. I hadn't seen him in a while. And then she said, and it'll be at the Ryman Auditorium. Well, I'm a country music fan. And when she said that, I thought, man, I have never played at the mother church of country music how awesome would that be? And I said, not only that, with Jeff there and Andy Griffith and the TV taping, shoot, I might go up there and you never know who from Nashville is going to be in the crowd. Maybe somebody want me to tour with somebody or something. So I literally went up there just to say hi to Jeff and to be able to perform at the Ryman Auditorium. And in that performance, that got me the Blue Collar Comedy Tour.